Regular meeting for Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Carrie, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Andy Duran.
Present.
Ann Hill.
Present.
Mark Berry.
Present.
Carrie Steinbach present. Tim Penich.
Present.
Amy Connell Donahue.
Present.
Lauren Hirsch. Present.
Okay, we're all present, so we can begin. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving on to item 3, a new addition to our every board meeting, the reading of the mission, vision, and values for Lake Bluff School District 65, and Amy Connell Donahue has volunteered to read this evening.
All right. Our mission and vision is to provide each student with quality instruction, learning opportunities, and educational environments that inspire academic achievement, personal growth, and responsible citizenship. Excellence in education, enthusiasm for life, every student, every day.
Thank you, Amy. All right, item 4, public comment. At every Board of Ed meeting, we offer the opportunity for members of the public to address the board. If anybody would like to speak tonight, please identify yourself and approach the podium. Not seeing anybody in the room. No one virtually as well. Okay, we'll have another opportunity later in the meeting. So moving on to item 5, addition of discussion item. Again, at every board meeting, we offer the opportunity for board members to suggest a discussion item for future agendas. We've added many things over the past few months and have had each of those to an agenda. So is there anything else anybody would like to suggest tonight? Okay, we'll ask again next meeting. Moving on to 6, reports. Our first report was going to be Sarah Buchek, our attorney. Unfortunately, with the weather and some other things in Sarah's schedule, could not make it tonight. So we'll welcome her to a future meeting in January, maybe?
Yes.
Okay. Great. So we'll move on to our PTO report with Nicole Elliott.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Nicole.
Well, I can just say a lot has been going on, lots of good things. It was a super busy fall, and we successfully launched the Pumpkin Bash, which is kind of a transition from a carnival event to more of a block party event. And overall, there was very positive feedback for it. If anything, I heard the opportunity for improvement was to bring back the forest. So we've reached out to some people to see if we can get that back, which I think would augment it well for next year. The chase also was successful. Numbers were down a bit, due probably to the fact that it was a long weekend, Halloween weekend, but it was still overall very good. There were about 650 people who registered for the chase. The numbers are still being crunched, but it was about a $10,000 profit. And then for the bash, there were between 350 and 400 who attended, and it was roughly a $5,000 profit. So we can report exact numbers at the next meeting. So yeah, it was overwhelmingly successful. We really had a great fall of seeking sponsorships for the PTO as well. We switched to a model under the leadership of Josh Fox, and thanks to him for really asking for annual donations as opposed to event specific. And the idea is that they'll get multiple opportunities throughout the school year to be exposed to the community as our sponsors, and depending on their level of sponsorship, they'll have multiple events as well. So for example, our premier sponsor is Sophia Steakhouse, and they donated $5,000 to the PTO very generously. So, we had them highlighted all over both the bash and chase. We also have to give thanks to Ireland Heating and Cooling and Forest Greens, who each donated $2,000. Forever Ohm, NVA, Uline, and Silo each donated $1,000. Pasquazi, Gardens, and LF Acute Care donated $750. And then we had 8 who donated $500, and lots of others who were just less than $500. So it was a very successful campaign with over $22,000 in generous sponsors and donations. So, and to kind of further support that, we have Melissa Wuso leading us in our Bluffer activities, and she's been finding new people to partner with and new restaurants. But in addition, she brought on the pie sales, which was probably the most successful Bluffer activity of all, and that had profits of $860. So really great. We also have to thank Claire Abrahamson and Morley Vahey for leading our fall book fair, which I was told was over 14,000 in sales. I'm not sure what the profits were from there yet, but overall, many great things, and the community and our parents are all stepping up very well. So with these funds, we're able to do great things such as, the capital improvements, and I'm happy to report the work by Christy Dunnick and Adrian Mural is complete, and our Fox Den is fully installed. If you haven't gotten over there to see that, it's amazing. And when is the Fox Families event? Is that Thursday? I thought it was this week. Yeah. So basically, the Fox Families, which are groupings of the students from kindergarten through fifth grade. Does that include preschool as well? Preschool through fifth grade are paired up, and they're going to be able to use the Fox, hopefully if it's not snowing, use the courtyard to kind of explore, but more and more that will be worked into the curriculum. There's a great effort to maintain these natural plantings that are low maintenance. We have the sprinkler system installed, so I think it's finally here to stay with a maintenance plan that will definitely weather over time. And to highlight the program, Mariani will soon provide a video of the project. They kind of did like a fast forward type thing, so I think that will be really neat to share too, so we can expose it to all of the community and the parents. For the LBMS Sport Court, we're working diligently to provide the documentation this week for both the Architectural Review Board meeting, which will be on December 6th, and the RIA-PISBA meeting, which is basically a zoning meeting, which will be on December 15th. They'll post the notifications to the village. We'll communicate that clearly through the school district. I just ask that if you're in support of the program or not, you're welcome to attend the meetings so that we can have a healthy discussion. In doing the research to prepare the documents, it was made very clear that the LBMS land is institution land, which means it's not open lands land. So there's no minimum requirement for the green space to be maintained. So I think that was probably the greatest learning that I had. So I don't think it will require any rezoning or anything like that. So that's all moving forward. Just to give a quick update on other fall activities, Project Full was really led very well by Megan Hadler, and I think Christy Hugel and many others helped, and we collected over 2,500 food items. That, it was really amazing. We definitely had some learnings of things we could do to improve the process going forward. I helped distribute it, and what a great organization. I mean, just truly impactful, and all the recipients were super grateful, and it was just really neat to see our community come together. We provided teacher meals for conferences. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Alex. Teacher appreciation and birthday boards are in progress at LBES and are soon to be at LBMS. We have school parties that occurred for the fall parties, recycling and composting. This is a huge initiative that we have many thanks to Mary Hogan for undertaking at the elementary school. She's there pretty much every day to volunteer to initiate this program. And the kids are really learning about the importance of being environmentally minded and saving a ton from going into the garbage. So it's a really great program. She's even getting requests to apply this and consult at other schools, and we were joking with her that she needs to start a consulting firm based on all of her learnings. We have discussions already in place for the summer reading programs, and had success with those past summer as well. The curriculum enhancements such as open lands maker space funding are occurring and will continue to occur per teacher requests and principal requests as well. Grade parties are occurring for each individual grade as a social opportunity for the children, but also the parents. So a lot of the grades are holding socials at the parent level, one to gather and two to maybe raise money for the grade parties. So it's kind of a neat little twist on that. And now we're looking into helping to either fully or partially spend the author funding for the Gordon Corman author in the spring. And we're beginning to research ideas for what we're going to call the Book Bash, which will be the second social, which will be like an adult function. So more to come on that. In terms of other PTO activities that are upcoming, the website will go live this month, the switch over to the membership toolkit website. We have holiday spirit wheel sales that just ended for delivery by the holidays, teacher and staff giving for the holidays. That is partially supported by the PTO. Will assist with Project Snowflake, which is the initiative to help those within our district who could use some assistance for the holidays. We have winter parties forthcoming, and we're going to help organize a spring this service event as well. So, lots going on, lots to come. Any questions, feedback, concerns?
That's all awesome, Nicole. Thank you for sharing all of those details with us. Would you let us know when the snowflakes are up in the office or however they're being done this year? Because we would like to announce that at the board meeting as well.
Okay, very well. We will do that.
Awesome. Anything else for Nicole?
The
Great.
pumpkin bash was great.
Thanks.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
All
for
your
all you're
hard
doing,
work.
Nicole.
Sure.
Now on to our Alliance report with Michael Breakstone.
Hello. This should be pretty quick. So I'd say this year for the Alliance is all about sort of reinvigoration, right? In the past couple of years, as other places have struggled with volunteers, we've struggled as well. Fundraising's been pretty flat, although we have a pretty solid balance, and granting has been pretty flat. Though we have are in the process of closing the fall 2022 grant, and we've got half dozen grants, mostly from LBES, one from LBMS, for a good variety of things. The Alliance is meeting on Thursday to vote on that, and we'll be hearing from the administration hopefully before that on sort of their thoughts on those items. Beyond that, we are, one of the things, right, reinvigoration, reinvention, regrowth, looking to launch some sort of January, February, maybe fundraising activity. Several years ago, there was the winter event at the Gearpath Inn that was quite successful, something along those lines. TBD. And in the meantime, we have a solidly sized board, but are also looking to recruit. So if anyone knows anyone, let me know. I shoot them my way. Beyond that, does anyone have any questions? It's pretty fast.
I'll just say thanks for your leadership in reinvigorating the Alliance thing. It's great. It's cool to hear what you guys are doing.
Great, thanks.
Any questions for Michael?
No,
I
thank
plan on
you.
coming at the end of the year, and we'll hopefully have maybe longer than 45 seconds worth of material at that point.
We don't mind 45
Yeah, I
seconds.
figured. Efficiency's good.
Yeah.
I'm with you there.
We appreciate the support with the grants.
Sure.
They look really great. Yeah,
Awesome.
thank
Right.
you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
guys.
Michael.
Thanks.
Okay, moving right along to item D, our principal report from the elementary school, Kelly Bay.
Hi, everybody. I am going to kind of build on a little bit of Nicole's report. We have our second pause assembly coming up this Thursday, and we are so excited. We have involvement this round from not only staff, but also students. So our pause assembly is an opportunity for us to come together as a full school, pre-K through fifth grade, and all of our staff to highlight an area of behavior. There's opportunity to celebrate, but there's also opportunity to bring some attention to some behavior or space that we want to make sure that we're reteaching expectations, we're highlighting, we're talking about and supporting students all across LBES. So at our second assembly, we are going to be highlighting bus safety. We've received some recent feedback, but that there's some room for improvement on our buses, and we have recruited some fifth graders to help us with that. So we've defined a fifth grader that is a bus leader on each bus. So 9 fifth graders have put together, and they're finalizing a video that will be showing the entire school. There are 3 segments that they have thought about really carefully in terms of where there's some struggle or opportunity. So the first segment is, what should you do if you need help? The second segment is bus rules. How can you be safe on the bus? and segment 3, what can you do on the bus? So I will be thrilled and excited to pass this video along to you, to highlight it to our parents so everyone has the information. We know that not everyone relies on transportation on a regular basis, but we know that there are more and more opportunities for students to be utilizing that, whether it be for a field trip. And I think there's enough conversation that this video is going to be really important and helpful. I do want to thank our PEP committee, the Partners Ensuring Pause. It's our team of staff that works to make some decisions about what we want to highlight. So they have been integral in this. Kathleen Turner-Kwok, our assistant principal, is leading that team. And Marcy Lennox is supporting these 5th graders to put this video together and really help to navigate a script that's going to be concise and effective. I also want to highlight the second part of our assembly is bringing back our Fox families. So as Nicole stated, this is really something that came about several years ago, an experience for students to develop relationships with another adult in the building, the staff member that leads the Fox family, as well as other students at LBES. So this round, the families are going to meet. They're going to create their family name and logo. They are going to create a family greeting or sign. This is sort of that idea that if I pass a member of my Fox family in the hallway, let's say that it's Dr. Layali and my Fox family, we've got our little sign or logo, or we're going to do something that's special between the people in the Fox family, so you have a really neat relationship there. And then finally, we're taking a photo of the Fox family. We're hopeful it can be in our new Fox den, but we do want to highlight that space as one that's opening. So it was a big puzzle. We felt it was important to preserve the Fox families from 2019. So you can imagine there are students, obviously, that have graduated out of our building that needed to be rotated out, new students that have moved in. So again, just props to Marcy Lennox. She really took that on. And we have labels ready to go so students know who they'll be with. I can't wait to hear what students have to say. And I look forward to sharing the transportation or the bus safety video with all of you. So lots to celebrate, but this is coming right up on Thursday, so it's timely to be able to share. Any questions about LBES and our assembly?
I just love that the Fox families are coming back. That always
I
in
do
our
too.
house, we heard a lot of good feedback about
Oh,
that,
good.
so that's great.
Wonderful, thank you. We're excited too.
And I love the idea of the bus leaders, and I love they're creating a video. Would love to see it, but would also be another great way for students to present at a board meeting maybe at some point,
Yes.
if you're interested in doing that. So
Absolutely, absolutely. We were hoping to pull that off for tonight, but weren't able to do so, just timing-wise. But I do think that can be something, hopefully this is just the beginning of students creating videos for our assembly, and they can come in and highlight and talk about that experience.
Do the bus leaders have a role on the buses or just part of the video, making the video?
So that is in the works. Yes, we are hoping that that student, whether it be another set of eyes on the bus to just help communicate back with staff that something maybe isn't feeling right or that we need to celebrate. We started with a name. Maybe they're bus heroes, maybe they're bus buds, maybe they're bus people, bus leaders, really trying to create some enthusiasm. Mrs. Turner-Kwok did visit all of our 5th grade and 4th grade classrooms recently to talk about, like, we really need your help as role models to set a good example, because we were receiving information from students that maybe there wasn't such kind language or appropriate words being used. And so we thought we could take this a step further by identifying an individual that maybe is seen as a leader, that has some relationships with people on the bus. So maybe they're reporting to the bus driver or their teachers. It really is in some beginning stages, but I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
anything else? Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Now on to Nate for LBMS.
All right, good evening. My report will be brief. I did just want to take this opportunity to talk with you a little bit about the 6th grade Springfield trip. You may recall back in April, I brought forth the proposals for all 3 of our trips, outdoor ed, which has happened, the Washington, D.C. trip coming up in February, and then the Springfield trip for our 6th graders. That's a one-day trip that occurs in May. The issue, though, is that when I brought that proposal to you at that time, the price per student has changed since then. The primary culprit to that is the cost of the coach buses, fuel prices, driver shortages, Also, some of the sites that we go to see in Springfield have increased their cost. And so in going back and forth with Hemisphere Travel, initially, when you approved this trip, it was $141 per student. Then when it came back to be signed recently, it had jumped to $168. And looking at that, one of the costs that we could adjust to bring it down a little bit to something closer to what was originally brought before you was the elimination of some of the step-on guides that we've utilized in the past. We're fortunate to have a very veteran staff of LBMS teachers who are going on this trip, many of whom have done it for a very long time. So we feel pretty confident that we can step in and fill that role without a step-on guide. So that brings us back to about $151 per student, up $10 from what we brought to you before. Wanted to just make sure that we were transparent about that and answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you for that. It certainly doesn't seem like a huge increase given all that we know is going on right now, but any questions on that for Nate? Okay.
Sounds
All
good.
right. Thank you very much.
All right, now on to our Director of Finance and Operations, Jay Kahn.
Okay, in your board packet is the annual statement of affairs. And this is an annual document that is prepared by the school district. We're required to publish it in the newspaper and submit it to the Illinois State Board of Education, and they publish it on their website. Traditionally, it's been an agenda item, but this is not something the board needs to approve. I just wanted to point it out. It is in your packet for review, and we're going to do it as a board report instead, so.
Great.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
When we are required to publish things in the newspaper, where do we publish them?
So that's actually a good question. This was something I was going to bring back at some point for discussion. It just needs to be published in the publication, the primary publication of like general circulation in the area. So we use the Lake County News Sun, which satisfies the legal requirements. The previous board had decided to also publish things in the Lake Forester because that is something that's more likely to be read by people in the community. So we do publish in both places, which doubles the cost. This particular publication is pretty lengthy, and I think it was about $500 per publication in the paper. So we are doubling up in order to be transparent. And realistically, not many people read the newspaper. So,
Still get the Lake Forester?
I know, I haven't gotten it in, I feel like in years. Does it still go around?
Lake Bluff.
Yeah, you have to subscribe now.
Okay.
Owned by the Tribune now, I think.
so it's just another local paper. So we're currently publishing in 2 newspapers. At some point, we may, bring the question to the board. Do we want to continue that practice or just publish in one or the other paper of circulation in the area to satisfy
Would the
those
Lake
requirements?
Forest, whatever that one, also fulfill the legal requirement?
I would have to look into that. I'm not sure.
Thank
I've never even seen the Lake County one that you mentioned.
Me neither.
Yeah,
But it goes to your point that people aren't really reading
right.
the
And
newspaper
all
anymore.
this information is also published on our website, so anybody in the community can find it online as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, is that it? Okay,
That's
great.
my report.
All right, thank you. On to Tracy, Director of Student Services.
I shared a PowerPoint with you. Could you put up slide 5, possibly? Thank you. Hi, good evening. All right, I just wanted to highlight a few things that our multilingual team has been working on. So our multilingual team are made up of our teachers who work on English language proficiency for our second or third language learners. So first, we had our first bilingual parent advisory committee meeting on November 10th. The Bilingual Parent Advisory Committee is open to parents whose children receive English language instruction. So this is required for schools who have more than 20 students in a building who speak a particular language. And in both of our school buildings, we have more than 20 students who speak Spanish. So we're required to do a couple of things, like have this BPAC.
This slide was shared at our first meeting and highlights the number of students who receive English language instruction in our schools and the number of languages, different languages spoken in our district. So I thought it really highlighted the diversity within our district. So we had our largest turnout to date for our BPAC meeting, which was really exciting for us. We had 9 families attend with moms, dads, and their children joining, so we had about 20 people total in attendance. They were there to learn about our multilingual programming, as well as learn some more information about standards-based grading and how to access the report card through PowerSchool. They also had the opportunity to give us feedback on how their students have done within our multilingual programming and ask any questions of our teachers. Our next BPAC meeting is on January 26th with the topic of parent-teacher conferences. So families will learn about the types of information they learn from classroom teachers at parent-teacher conferences, as well as what are good questions to ask teachers. And they'll also be able to give their own feedback on how they feel parent-teacher conferences have gone for them in the past. Then we have a meeting on March 9th. This meeting will focus on access testing. Access test is the test that all students who are in our multilingual program take in order to measure their annual English language proficiency. And then our last meeting of the year will be on April 27th, and the topic of that meeting will be determined based on some of the feedback we hear from parents and what they would like to learn more about within our schools, as well as an opportunity for them to just have open discussion. So the other piece that our multilingual team is working on is a program review. So we have hired a consultant through our Regional Office of Education who came out for the first time yesterday to observe a few of our multilingual teachers working with students and how they give instruction to our students, as well as to give them feedback and then learn more about how we service students in our schools. This person will come out 5 more times this year. Right now, they're focused at the elementary school, but they will split their time also at the middle school, learning how our programming is run there. And then they will also provide professional development and how best practices for multilingual learners are good practices for all students. And that professional development will be given to all teachers in our district in January. So lots of exciting work happening with our multilingual team. Any questions?
No question, but a comment. I love seeing the district demographics and the how many different languages spoken, and it reminds me of what you, Dr. Leali, you put in your Friday update about the Unity Group and what's happening at the middle school with announcements in different languages and things, which is really cool that it's being highlighted. So, yeah, thanks for that work.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Amy.
Okay. We do not have our Dr. Margaret Ryan with us tonight, so we'll skip item H, move on to my president's report. I'll be brief. First thing, just for the massive audience watching, it's soon coming up to the time, if you were interested in running for school board, that Vote Lake Bluff, which our caucus here in Lake Bluff has their deadline, I think, at the end of the month for applying to be part of their slate. We know we have one position as of right now that's open, so there have been a couple people that have expressed interest, but if any of you are curious about what it means to be on school board or learning from experience and what that might look like for you, please feel free to reach out to any of us. I'm certainly happy to talk with anybody as well about the experience. So more to come on that. Second one is a bit of a celebration. I think our board is aware, but our community may not be aware, that our superintendent, Dr. Leali, just published her first book, first of many, I'm sure. It's called Leading Through Chaos, 10 Strategies for School Leaders During Crises. And you can get it anywhere books are sold, online at least. So Amazon, Google, search for Dr. Leali book, you'll find it. So I've read part of it. It's great content, real life examples, shares a lot of heart, which is great, which is the way you lead. And one of my favorite parts is in the introduction where Lucy, your favorite child / dog,
my favorite furry child,
gets a call out. So anyway, I would highly encourage everyone to read. And actually, I mentioned this because it's 2 things I know. One, Dr. Leali is not a great self-promoter, which is a good thing in many cases, but you're not a great self-promoter. And 2, it's a kind of a big deal when your superintendent writes a book and publishes a book. So I'd like to propose that we do something to celebrate that officially with our school families. I don't know if that means we add it to a discussion item at a future meeting, or we somehow informally discuss it, but I'd like to suggest that we do something to honor that accomplishment. First of many, I'm sure.
I
So,
second
any
that.
thoughts? Okay. So going back to the earlier item, let's add that to a future meeting so we can actually discuss how we want to celebrate that with our school families. So
Oh,
if you're
yeah.
good with that. And if you haven't read it, I would encourage you to read it.
Thank you.
It'll be on the New York Times bestseller list
Yeah,
in no
sure.
time.
There's a hardback version, a
Don't look
paperback
too
version.
closely into how the Amazon
It's on Kindle.
bestseller
I
list
saw it on
gets
Kindle.
calculated.
I have it on my
'cause-
You
And
got
a
it on
Kindle
Kindle,
version,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
Did you know that?
No,
Oh,
did
it's
not
there.
know that.
Okay.
Very
So
exciting.
congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And we want to celebrate that. Okay. Moving on then to, that's all I have for me. So moving on to our
Great.
superintendent's report.
Thank you so much. I do also have a brief, update on the Thrive Committee, and then we also have a celebration for our board members today. So really briefly, as you know, in the spring of 2021, we initiated a task force in the district called Thrive, and it was to ensure that all of our students in our very diverse district that Tracy was just talking about are all feeling trusted, honored, respected, included, and valued every day here in District 65. So to date, we have broken into subcommittees. We've done surveying of students, parents, and community members. And we've done some draft mission statements and focus goals. So as of now, Tracy and I, who are co-facilitating the group, have gotten together and analyzed the survey data that came in, and we'll be meeting again with our subgroup committees to present the data that those subcommittees asked to see, because there were lots of questions on those surveys. We broke out the data and we've put them into presentations. Those groups will meet in late November. So that last week of November, we'll meet with each subcommittee, present the data, and then hopefully bring some themes and big ideas to our strategic planning process, because ideally, while this work is really important on its own, we don't want it to sit out on its own while we're doing a comprehensive strategic plan in January. So we'd like that group to bring some draft either goals or commitments or value statements that would come into that strategic plan process to be embedded into that final comprehensive plan moving forward. So that's just an update. We haven't heard about Thrive in a while. We have still a pretty big group. We had a couple of our staff members drop off, a couple of our community members drop off, but we got new people that have also been included. And so I'm really excited to continue with that.
How many people are there
I
altogether?
think we're up around 35 to 40 still people. So that's really great. And today is National School Board Members Day, and so we want to thank all of our school board members. I'll invite Tracy to the podium because we are going to read the proclamations that are so coveted at the board table in our most dramatic reading as possible.
Did you do it in British accent?
I actually forgot there was a board
Yes,
member day.
there is
so.
a full board. This is the actual board member day. This is it.
I know, I knew that. You reminded me this morning. I didn't know until then.
And for our very large viewing audience, our board also received nice district sweatshirts. If you see them walking around, this is not spirit wear. This was especially designed by Amy and our outfitters for them. And also a comprehensive audit, financial audit as well for their reading pleasure.
Thanks for that, Jay.
And a tote. So with that,
Cuddle up with your, in your new
Yes,
sweatshirt by the
yes.
fire, and
read the audit
have
and
hot
read.
chocolate and read the audit.
Yes, read the audit, which is excellent information. And with that, we will read our resolution for School Board Members Day this November 15th of 2022. Whereas school board members are elected to sit in trust for their diverse communities, and in that capacity are charged with meeting the community's expectations and aspirations for the public education of their children. And
Whereas school board members are entrusted with the guardianship and wise expenditure of scarce tax dollars, and they are responsible for maintaining and preserving the building, grounds, and other areas of the school district that the community has put in their trust. And
Whereas school board members are responsible for providing leadership that ensures a clear, shared vision of public education for their schools, that sets high standards for the education of all students and requires the effective and efficient operation of their districts. And
whereas school board members adopt public policy to give voice to that leadership and employ a superintendent to administer board policy, and are also responsible for the regular monitoring of the district's performance and compliance with state policy. And
whereas school board members selflessly volunteer countless hours to public service with no compensation.
Stop sweatshirts.
And
Whereas school districts have faced enormous challenges over the last 2 years, and the strong, dedicated leadership provided by the Lake Bluff School District Board of Education has allowed student learning and success to continue, and
Whereas employers are supportive of their employees who serve as school board members, generously lending support and time, employers give their employees the opportunity to better serve the needs of the school districts and communities they represent through sometimes tremendous sacrifice to the employer, and
whereas decisions made by school board members directly impact the quality of life and safety in their communities, placing them as the front line of American democracy. Therefore be it
resolved by the Lake Bluff Elementary School District 65 that we proclaim November 15th, 2022 as School Board Members' Day as a way to honor those citizens who devote their time and energy for the successful education of our children and our future leaders.
thank you so much for all you do for our community, truly. I can't think of one thing on here that is not an example of what you do all the time, and we just appreciate your leadership, your encouragement, your support, and your service to the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you want to run for school board, this too could be you up here listening to such a resolution.
You should be flashing the sweatshirt like,
All right.
like bribery.
Yes.
Mayor's got it.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. That completes our reports portion of the evening, so we'll move on to our discussion presentations, and we're going to be led off tonight with a proposal on a prospective paved path by a resident and neighbor, John Tanner. So please approach the podium. Thank you.
Just very quickly, I want to thank Mr. Tanner for joining us today. We have had an opportunity, Jay and I, to meet with him about the proposal. We thought it would be a good idea, a good next step after meeting with us, for him to be able to have the opportunity to present to the board.
And I appreciate your patience, if you will. You know, this is unknown territory for me, so you were very good in giving me a little bit of guidance. So, and Amy, of course, outstanding. We'll start out with what we're trying to do here, and that is, first of all, my name's John Tanner, and have lived in Lake Bluff for over 40 years. We live on East Witchwood, right across from Circle Drive. Circle Drive, if you're not familiar with it, is a very short street with 4 houses on each side that ends, if you will, at the school line, if you will, the school property. And the time that we've lived there, you know, what we have done in terms of to get to the school and then get to, Artesian Park, is to walk along Circle Drive and then walk along the the west side of the East School, when it used to be there. For any people that, I'm not sure how many people are even familiar with the East School, because that's a while back. But you used to be able to walk there and walk, very easily, and it goes to a crosswalk, if you will, that goes right to Artesian Park. And so, we 4 kids that graduated from the middle school, by the way, so it was great for them. And even now in retirement, in terms of going to Artesian Park and going to downtown, I'm still walking that path walking the overall on a regular basis. Now, the challenge, of course, is that when the East School was torn down in 2011, then that pathway, that sidewalk was gone. So different things have taken place over the years, but so for the last 11 years, though, you really have to walk on grass, if you will, in order to be able to get to the sidewalks, if you will, on the east side of the middle school. And so what I'm here to do today is to propose that we make a paved pathway so that you can have a paved area to get all the way to the East Sheridan Place and points on beyond. So now, the next slide, please. And you can't see it very well, but what I'm proposing is a path, if you will, that goes from, right there, very good, from Circle Drive, there's the end of it right down to the bottom of the page, and the path would be about 120 feet long. Talking about a 4-foot wide path, don't have specifications yet, but, did some estimates in terms of, what it might cost, and so I think that we're in a ballpark setup here. Now, the next slide, please. This is just if people aren't that familiar with the layout, if you will. Circle Drive is down on the south side here. And you can't even see it very well. I should have marked it up a little bit here. But this puts everything in perspective, where you've got the East Witchwood is on the bottom of the slide, and the East Sheridan Place is on the top, and then you've got the roads on each side. So that just gives you sort of an overview of where we are with this overall program. So next slide, please. The advantages of a paved path, if you will, is that it would, let's see if I can, I had a hard time even seeing it here. Is that it would allow for get my notes here, excuse me. Obviously, it would eliminate the need to walk on the 100 feet of dirt and grass. And that's not really a big deal for the most part, but every once in a while we get some snow and things like that, which interferes a little bit, and rain and so on. So at any rate, a paved path would make that whole process obviously a lot easier. And one thing that I ran into in terms of my talking to different people in the neighborhood was that we've got more and more really young kids around, which is wonderful. It's although you've been around a long time when the newer families that are coming in are younger than your kids type thing. But it's great and it's fun to see. But what it allows then is for people that want to take their kids on with the little tyke bikes and everything else. It makes it so that they can do it without having to have a problem. So, and that's part of the youngster-friendly pathway note here is along that line, and that it simply helps all the way around with all those things that have the little small wheels on it, which there's no way that you're going to take them across the other area. It also extends the number of days, if you will, that you can use this particular a route, if you will, to get from Circle Drive to the park and that type of thing, and of course the school. So at any rate, let's see, where am I now? I did a sort of an informal survey, talking to people, especially on Circle Drive, and before I went ahead with this, because I thought, okay, do I just do this without checking with people? And the answer is no. So, especially those people that are right on the end, right near the, so at any rate, the response was outstanding. People said, yeah, and probably the most characteristic thing was it's obvious. It's really something that really should be done. So at any rate, that was kind of fun to go through that. Met some people I didn't meet before. But I think I did get one response where they, somebody on East Witchwood that is a little bit further away that said they probably wouldn't be an advantage, but not a disadvantage either. So at any rate, I'm 10 out of 11. I didn't count myself in that one, by the way, so there at least 11, if you will. From a financial standpoint, what we're looking at is just private funding here. So we figured that, okay, this is not a real big project, and it really doesn't serve a large part of the community, but it serves a certain area of us. So I figured that with private funding, we would have a better chance without having to put it into budgets and all those types of things of making it happen. Also, obviously, we need to understand, Jay needs to understand the impact in terms of, snow plowing and things like that. That would probably be the most significant deal in terms of adding to his particular budget. And so that has to be determined. So the Follow-up then, the next slide, please, is I need school board approval before I can do anything, which is understandable, because what I'd like to do would be to obviously get estimates and all the other things that are necessary. But one of the major factors now, which I didn't understand when I started this, probably over a year ago, was really the fact that a sports court is being looked at, which I think is a fantastic opportunity for that particular area. And so it's going to be very important then for me to understand what Nicole is doing and what they're doing in terms of the detailed drawings to make sure that what I'm looking at does not interfere. And I think this is probably going to be a good opportunity to join forces too, because with Nicole's presentation from I think last May, it really gave me an idea of how many approval organizations there are. How can a community this size have so many approvals? Although our daughter, Julie Waymire, was on the Architectural Review Board, so I got a little bit of an understanding of how that works. So, the other thing, of course, is meeting with, operations, and so that's meeting with Jay to get the good numbers. And then review with the village engineer, who I've met with before on my own personal projects many decades ago, probably now, and that to understand what's going to be necessary in the way of drawings and approvals and everything else from his standpoint. So once I'm done with that and I have some really good numbers, and whatever, and have more of a laid out action plan, then I want to come back, if you will, to the school board and basically say, okay, this is what it looks like right now. Can we go ahead? So with all that, any questions to begin with? Yes, Mark.
Do we own the land at the end of Circle Court, under the trees between the Circle Court and our obvious green, the lawn? Is that ours to make that decision?
The property line of the school.
Yeah, where's the property line? Do we own that land at the end of Circle Court?
Actually, I think there's a right of way there, because there's actually a paved path in there that's about 18 feet wide right now that, I would probably replace if I can get away with it, simply so that basically it's all new.
So there's a right of way between Circle Drive and school property?
Right, well, I would guess, yes, and so that will be part of what I'll have to research, if you will, is to understand and probably get more approvals, if you will, from whoever basically is in charge of the roads in order to be able to do that. Unless I just tacked it on at the end, but if we're gonna do this, might as well basically bring new paving all the way to the Circle Drive.
Who manages the right of way? Is that a village issue? Like, who has authority over the right of way? I think that's a kind of a big question. Because we can approve or not approve on the property we own, but up to the point where you hit the right of way, we don't have authority there. So I think that's a big
Right,
question.
so that's one of the many things I'm gonna have to do is to understand that, Worst case would be that I would just stop, where the path is right now, because of that paving, But I don't want to do that. If we're going to go this far, really want to have a new asphalt all the way to Circle Drive. And I'm sure that we can work that out, but, I look at it as sort of like a driveway, so we'll have to see if we can get away with that kind of simplicity. Probably not.
Just so that I want to make sure that I understand what you said earlier. We moved here in 2013, so East School was already demolished.
Right, so you're
moved to town. But I am aware that it was in the lot there. So you're saying there used to be a sidewalk that went all the way to the cul-de-sac of Circle Drive?
It didn't go all the way to the cul-de-sac, but it came pretty darn close. And so
Okay.
that's where that paved area is. And I'm not sure, I can't remember very well exactly, how many feet there might have been and what the exact surface was. But if you look at, I got the old, satellite drawing, if you will, or, satellite image. It's amazing how close the old school came to Circle Drive. So,
Okay, thank you.
good question. Yeah.
I have one question. First of all, thank you for your presentation. You did a great job, and for giving us this information. My question is really for administration. Just looking at school safety, something we really have a heightened awareness to right now more than ever. As I look at the the drawing up there, where we're looking at a route, a point of access back towards our school building. away from a closed point of access now. Do we have any, and this may require an answer later, but do we have any security question about creating another pathway for students, access to students during the school day, or students going elsewhere during the school day? Like have we thought about that at all?
Safety wise?
Like a safety issue? Is it a?
You can come on up,
Nate,
Nate.
if you- yeah.
I mean, I think obviously we're talking about safety a lot. And so anytime you have an additional point of access, that's something we'd have to look at in terms of if we would want surveillance there as well. Yeah.
Yeah, Jay and I talked earlier about the possibility of increasing some camera coverage there, but I would say as far as that area being used, kids are already using that to get to and from school anyway. So I don't foresee this to be a change other than perhaps to be a more well-maintained pathway for them to get to school on those days.
I just looked it up. It's a huge pathway, and it's on Google Maps, and there's a flag hanging there, so somebody
Okay.
takes care of it.
Right,
Cool.
I mean, I will say, I live on Ravine Forest Drive, and sometimes we'll cut through and
All right,
use
good.
it as well. So I
Okay.
am familiar with the fact that it's.
So would you approve this
Well
project
used.
then?
I like how he works.
I will say my 2 cents is I think it's a nice idea.
I
I
do
think it's
too.
a
I
nice
like-
idea.
More ease for the kids to get around.
Yeah, I mean, Lake Bluff really,
It's a bike
I don't know what the word is, markets itself or takes pride in the fact that, we're a very bikeable town, walkable town,
Yep.
easy access for people, and this just helps
Right.
promote that. So
This makes
I
it
think it's a
easier.
nice idea.
And I totally agree with that. My only question would be, you're asking of the 11 people is fantastic, but I know maybe we would want to talk to some of the neighbors as well. And from the start, instead of bringing them in later, because I know that's been a sticky situation. So that would be only my,
You mean the other neighbors around
yeah,
the middle school?
just in that
Vincent
area,
Circle,
just to make sure that
Sure,
they're.
Circle Drive, East Witchwood,
Yeah.
Vincent Court,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
Right, I had volunteers, they would sign wherever I wanted them to sign. How fast can you do it, that type of thing.
Yeah,
So,
totally,
I'm sure we can
totally.
get some,
I just think the transparency where we try to,
right, right.
everyone.
I totally agree with
I
that. I was
agree.
thinking of that from the beginning.
yeah,
Right.
but it's great plan.
So, any other questions? Now,
I think it's great to make things more walkable in a safe manner for family and kids, so thank you for bringing this.
oh, thank you. Thank you for your time.
And my only concern is just any additional costs, ongoing costs, that I know Jay's looking into, so.
So now, do I have to get an approval? You guys meet secretly or something like that? Or so-
Typically, yeah, typically
Okay.
this is just
You'll
the
get back to me.
discussion
Then
part.
I can start doing my research, okay.
There'll be many more of these, I'm sure.
Okay, very good.
I guess the board would need to give consensus that you'd like us to continue to work with Mr. Tanner on the plans.
Yeah, does anybody push back
Well,
on
and
that?
it sounds like, as far as Nicole's next step, going to the different zoning meetings and stuff, it would be helpful if it was something we agreed on, that was part of your presentation as well, correct? No.
I mean, it will be a little too late to get it in here for the December.
Got it.
meeting. Now, that said, I could go and ask the engineer, I mean, perhaps he can work a miracle and get it in the room. I have to.
Well, there's probably stuff on our end we also have to
Yeah.
do before that, so.
Yeah, so, but I mean, it's gonna be, I think, something that can easily be explored in conjunction with the work we're already doing.
Got it.
Because there's already going to be, there already is in the plan, an additional sidewalk to access from the existing sidewalks out to the sport court, so it's that same concept, and hopefully we can, work together and help bring down the cost.
Yeah, I think we need to be partners because everything she's having to do, I'm having to do too. So take advantage of,
I'm sure she
of her
appreciates
research and her contacts. So that's what I'm looking forward to being able to do. Okay?
As far as, go ahead, you're probably gonna say the same thing I was
Yeah.
gonna say, is as far as giving guidance as to, yes, this is something we should continue to discuss or look into, I'm fine with that. I don't know if you
Do we
want a
need to-
formal
is this
vote
some-
on
yeah,
that,
do we need to
or-
vote on it?
I think this is just giving us direction that we can,
'Cause we
continue.
would
We don't
vote-
have a formal proposal yet or anything that would
Okay.
entail
That would be later.
costs, so that would be later.
We're asking him, we'd like to see more.
If you'd like to see more, that's the direction that we need. If you'd like us to go down this road
Yeah.
and do a little bit more work to figure out some of the maintenance cost and some of these other design proposals.
Right, and I'm expecting to do that. I needed just to have the authorization to be able to go and talk to people is what it boiled down to, so
Great.
we will do that. So, okay,
Well,
thank
just-
you very
just-
much.
Just note that this
Amy,
isn't,
thank you
this
so
is
much
not
for everything.
formal
you did.
authorization for anything.
Nope.
This is,
This is just us giving our
Guidance.
administration the guidance to
This is
to
not a
continue
formal vote at
working-
all.
Right, right, to continue working with you.
Very good.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Tanner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to our second presentation, financial, oh no, we're not doing, that's
We do have to
tabled.
skip our audit
Yeah, sorry,
presentation.
thank
Our auditor wasn't able to join us tonight, so we're gonna table this one until next.
that's the only reason I
It's
came.
it's in our present, though.
It is in your present, and we're giving it to you first so that you can read it ahead of time and be fully versed on it.
See you, Michael, thank you. But we will keep it with Jay anyway for the statement of affairs. I know you referenced it prior, but anything new here to add?
No.
Okay, great. So we covered that already. School maintenance grant.
So if you recall, we applied for and received a school maintenance grant to help with the playground renovations at the elementary school. These are grants that are periodically offered by the State Board of Education. And so we have the need to do some work on our HVAC system at the middle school, which is nearing the end of its life. And I would like to apply for a grant for this project as well. So I just need, really, this is the approval for, the board would be giving approval to set aside matching funds because that's a requirement for the application for the grant. So at this point, this approval is just approving me to apply for the grant by saying that we will set aside the additional $50,000 for the project. And in reality, the project will be significantly more money than that, so.
Do you have to use it that year?
You have 2 years to use it, so
So if it got
Initially-
delayed a little bit,
yeah. When I was initially thinking about it, I was optimistically shooting for this coming summer, but I think it's gonna be more like the following summer
Yeah.
of 2020, whatever that is.
There's enough
Four.
for.
is there a way to break
24.
that project up over a couple of years, or is it better to do
It's
it?
better to do it all at once. You could break it up because there's 2 air handling units in the basement and 2 and 3 in the mezzanine, and you could do them separately, but you would get,
You get hit by all the charges of mobilization, demobilization.
right,
and
it's cheaper to do it all at once.
Bringing cranes is expensive. That's what they use for those, right?
Yeah.
The cranes at the elementary school were huge when they did that one.
These would not be quite as big, but it is, those are actual rooftop units. These are within the building,
Oh.
so it'd be a trick to get it in the building. They're gonna have to remove some louvers and I don't know what it will take to get
Does
it
he,
in.
did he take it apart and
Studying.
reassemble it inside, or?
Something like that, yeah.
Oh, God.
Well, that's an approval item for tonight, so we can discuss it again then, but any other questions for Jay? Okay, great, thank you. Moving on to item E, tentative tax levy recommendation. Just as a reminder, our goal tonight is to pass the tentative levy, put it on display at the district office, and then in December, next month, we'll have the truth and taxation hearing. But Lisa, Jay, you do this one off?
No, as a reminder, this is the third now discussion that we're having on the tax levy. The first was an introduction to the process. The second was our recommendation, and this is the third option or opportunity for discussion. As you can see in the packet, the presentation from last time is in there, as well as the tax levy FAQ that we developed that will go on our website tomorrow after approval tonight, or if there's any revisions tonight, then we would adjust the FAQ from there. And then the resolution that would be approved as well tonight. So we are recommending levying a little over 5%. As a reminder, CPI came in at 7%, 5% is the cap that we have, and then the little over 5% has to do with the new construction estimates.
I have one question. I apologize, I didn't catch this until I was doing my final review before the meeting, but the FAQ doc is great. I think we talked about last time, wanting to produce that. I think that answered a lot of questions. The one thing that I think might be helpful, and it was in your presentation, was what that means for the average taxpayer. You would come up with like what that averaged, just to make it relevant. Is there a way to add that in there?
Yes.
I think that's something that people would Yeah, okay.
Be
Gary
interested
asked
in,
that as
yeah.
well. I wasn't able to get it in
Okay.
time.
Great. I just want to make sure. That's one thing I remember we discussed.
We can add that in.
You want some credit for that one?
Are we just diving right into questions, or are we doing a presentation?
We are not going to do another presentation, so this is an opportunity for.
The only thing I would say in terms of presentation is that last time, this is what was presented in terms of the long-term budget, and I was asked to go back and run some scenarios. So that's what this slide is.
Oh.
And it's, I don't know if it's easy to see or not, but the top line was my original projection. That is basically doing 5 this year, 5 next year, and then assuming that it goes back down to 2s for the following 3 years. The dotted line, the long dash line below that, does a 3 this year, and then it goes up to 5 next year, and then the 2s, and then the bottom dotted line is all 3s. So doing 3 this year, and then 3 next year, and then because of that new law that allows us to get, recapture some of that money and give us more flexibility. If we did go down to 2, we could still ask for the 3s going out. So that was kind of like the middle, like the lowest middle ground. And so you can just see the impact that has on our fund balance going forward.
I'm sorry, Jay, can you, I was,
Yeah, so
can you highlight the forecast strategy for those bottom 2 lines again for me?
yes, the top line again is, right now, we know with certainty that CPI was 7% last year, and 5 is the cap. And then through October this year, it's running at 7 or 8%. So it's going to be another 5 next year. So for the top line is 2 5s, and then I assume it's going to go back to normal rate of inflation, 2%
Yep.
going on forward. That's been my long-term forecast. Then the line below that is just saying, instead of 5 this year, we do 3, and everything else is the same.
So
So you have 3 and then 5.
3, and then we go up to 5 next year, and then we go back down to the 2s. So it's
Okay.
basically the exact same, but instead of doing all 5 this year, we do 2, or we do 2 less and do 3. And then in the last the final bottom line is 3% for the next 5 years.
And just to summarize what I think this is saying, just for anybody who may be watching this later, is given that PTEL caps at 5 and CPI was at 7, even us levying 5%, we're still losing a significant
ground.
amount, and we're going down towards the bottom end of our threshold of the board approved.
Correct.
there's a question on the FAQ that quantifies specifically that I asked, that we're not allowed to levy at the full CPI, which is 7%, but by levying at 5, and we expect our expenses to go up by 7%, we're leaving 330-something thousand, I forget the answer, something,
Yeah.
$330,000 on the table that we can't go after, but will, in theory, be short that much. If the CPI basket of goods theory holds that it's a true representation of how our costs are going to increase.
Correct.
So we're already starting out.
A little bit behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
The only other thing I'd point out is that at the bottom here, I've got some capital projects. We did get some estimates back on the parking lot, and I think in my original long-term plan, I had 450,000 because that was the estimate when we basically White came out and did a big building facility study and put in that placeholder for the parking lots. And so I padded that, hoping to be able to do some pavers or something else. It's going to be probably 600,000, just with the increase in cost recently in asphalt and labor, to just replace it with a parking lot. So that's kind of the minimum. And then we are getting costs on doing some other things with the parking lot that are more either environmentally friendly or progressive. And some of those things, although they do bring longer life and some long-term benefits, probably not enough to outweigh the additional cost. And that parking lot could be anywhere between 600,000 to 1.2 million, depending on what we want to do. And then what's also not here is we've been looking at our in the gym, the locker rooms, which don't get very much use and are pretty run down, and looking at bringing White out to revitalize that space and put in an exercise room with weights and workout equipment, and to move the coaches' lockers and kind of redo that area. And that capital project is not on this list anywhere. So we do have some capital needs that are also seeing inflation and built into those numbers that I shared earlier.
And some of that locker room project has to do with accommodating, again, a more diverse group of students and ensuring that everyone feels comfortable in changing areas in locker rooms, making sure that we have some individualized changing rooms and spaces for students who need that.
So so I guess I misheard. I thought I heard Jay say we were getting rid of the locker rooms.
There still will be some individualized changing areas for students who need that, but we'll be getting rid of a lot of the space in there to make room for a fitness facility.
There's a lot of
Because there's
shower
showers.
space that's not being
Yeah.
used.
Yeah.
And so to redo the locker rooms to make them more usable for our current students, and then to take
for our
the extra
program.
space and some of the coaches' offices and move those and,
I think it's a good
get better use of that space.
idea overall, because there's a lot of nightmares housed in middle school locker rooms.
And we really would like to incorporate student voice into that, sort of like our playground project, and get students involved in surveying and.
Is the workout room facility, is that a potential PTO thing down the road?
We've talked to them a little bit about supporting some of the equipment and things. More of the project would be more of a capital expense for the district, and a little bit of renovation with how that space is partitioned out. But we've absolutely floated it to the PTO in terms of supporting the equipment that goes in there.
And so my only reason for bringing it up is just to point out that it's not anywhere, I have not put it in these projections at all. And then we are doing a strategic plan this fall, which will really dictate the spending. I had to make a lot of assumptions in this projection prior to negotiations with our collective bargaining unit, and prior to the strategic plan, which will really allow people to weigh in on where they want to spend the money and what they want to see the district do. And that could change what I've assumed.
Sure.
Well, thanks, Jay. We'll seek to approve that later in this meeting, but in the meantime, any other questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I want to raise a point. The increase on the budget. So we've already talked about how we're capped at 5%. It looks like our expenses really are going up to 7%, and we're going to have a $330,000 potential shortfall that we've got to figure out, because all our contractual expenses are going up. We haven't had a 5% tax increase in the entire time I've been on the board, and I don't think we've probably ever had one. We've never been capped by PTEL, and
No, since it was.
started, right?
Since it started in
Right.
the early 90s.
So this is going to be the biggest increase that they've seen here ever. It's going to hit some people hard. I just want to throw out an alternative perspective. Wondering if there's a way to not levy the full 5%. Because I know the law has recently changed that we're not penalized year over year for not levying at the max every year. But if we levied at something like 4.5%, it looks like we are giving up $84,500. I'm looking at question 11 on the FAQ, frequently asked question document, and the difference between the $330,000 mentioned and the $415,000 is $84,500. Just in theory, if you went with a 4.5% increase instead of a 5%. And I don't know that moves the needle very much for the average taxpayer. I mean, you spread that $84,000 out over however many households we have. But I just wonder if there's value in the symbolism of making the effort to not levy at the max, and credit to be gained in the community by really trying to look at every aspect of this thing. I know that it's been presented to us that like that $80,000 is an average employee in the community, right? In the district. So it's never a pleasant conversation to have when you have to look at cuts. But I wonder if it's something worth discussion and looking for places other than personnel to trim corners, to find a way to do something that I guess you could argue is largely symbolic, but in my gut, I feel bad about a 5% tax increase.
I was gonna ask a similar question, because I feel like there's, the conversation about the taxes is constant. And in a time when there are probably people struggling a little more than normal post-COVID, did it just every time we automatically take the full amount? I worry about people coming in and moving out. I just feel like I'm seeing that. I hear people talk about how as soon as their kids are done, they have to get out because the taxes are so high. This obviously isn't going to solve that. But it did cross my mind also that it was worth talking about.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if there's an answer to it. I'm not sure that I vote on a lower number, but I wanted to raise it, just throw it out there for consideration. We're already coming up short, right? The CPI is at 7 and we're capped at 5, so that, but people aren't gonna remember that argument or care about that. But when they open their tax bill and they compare it to last year and they see 5%, and some households are gonna go up more than that. Some will go up less than that, depending on how the value of their property affects their individual tax bill.
They're not gonna see 5% increase on their tax bills, how I understood it,
No,
right?
it could change. The net average of all of the tax bills combined will be about 5%, right?
Correct.
But various households will vary depending if their house goes up, the value of their home goes up more or less compared to other houses. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, you got it.
Been listening to enough of these over
Well,
the
on
years.
13 years of tax levy introductions, yeah.
But either way, the average person's gonna look at their tax bill and go, wow, that's a lot. And so I just think we owe it to people in the community to at least talk about it.
Other thoughts there?
Well, didn't we talk at the last meeting, we're 40% of it, right?
Correct.
That other 60%, we had talked about maybe reaching out and seeing what they were, if they were also asking, like, you know, maybe we're not a ton, I mean, we are a lot, but we're not everything. There's
The
still
big picture.
more, you know, that's coming to the piece of the pie, so.
Us plus the high school is what percentage of the tax bill, do you know?
60?
You know what is the high school taking the full amount? Or asking to?
I have been told
I-
that they are.
I don't know of any district.
That's not.
That is not.
Yeah, I imagine.
And there've been a lot of informal.
I imagine it's true, anybody subject to PTEL is gonna try to take it all, because they're all behind the 8 ball, no matter what.
And actually, the discussion in a bigger superintendent group was more how much in addition to the 5%. Because there's the new construction part, which hits people differently, and certain areas have more new construction and bigger impacts. For us, that's not as big an impact, so we're staying pretty close to that 5%.
And then my other question is, how easy is personnel, like taking, if we did go down to 4.5, not impacting personnel? Because, you know, being a mom with kids that are in classes that are larger than normal and getting bigger, the thought of, you know, cutting a staff member scares me.
Well, and
It's hard to
last time
swallow.
we did strategic planning, and I assume this will come up again this time, one of the number one things people really, really wanted to keep in Lake Bluff was small class sizes.
And as you recall, we added some additional staff members in some support areas because of what we had seen in terms of academics after COVID. So we have already been having discussions about lowering those class sizes back down, but also trading out some of those positions. So I do want to assure the board that we don't have plans to add to staff anyway. Even if we were to levy this full amount, we're still looking at shifting staff and changing some of the positions to make sure that we keep class sizes where they are and keep to our commitment of only a few years in those extra support positions. that have turned from one-year positions into multi-year positions. We're looking at scaling back on that already.
So I did kind of cut off Lauren's question, which was if staff is not where we would cut, then where would it be? Would it be the capital projects? Would it be?
I think that's a bigger discussion for the administrative team.
As
Right.
well.
And,
Right.
no, and I mean,
School supplies.
this doesn't necessarily, if we were to levy 4.5% versus 5%, that's not an automatic cut to personnel. But personnel is the largest portion of our budget. And so, like I said, we're already looking at ways to be creative with that. There are other pieces to the budget, like curriculum materials and professional development, and there's other things.
$600,000 parking lot.
Right. And capital projects are a little bit different, right, in terms of budgeting, because that's coming out of a different reserve.
Capital
than-
projects are
different
one
column.
time, so it's something that's, you spend it once and it's done, whereas personnel, it's an annual thing. And so as we talk about the tax levy, that's also an annual thing, because if we don't levy it now, we won't levy it in the future. And if we decide to levy it in the future, then we're just delaying the 5%, and we're not really providing any relief to people.
Right.
The capital projects we would want to be coming out of that reserve.
Correct, yes.
But
I
the
understand.
operating budget is impacted greatly by staff.
The reality is that 75% of our operating budget is salaries and benefits, and then a good 15% is purchase services like transportation and night custodial, which we don't have a lot of control over.
Right.
So that when you're talking about other things to cut, your list starts to get pretty small.
I appreciate the question, Mark, or the comment, Mark and Amy. And I've wrestled with that some too, to be honest. One thing that I think we did talk about the last meeting, I don't know if we brought up tonight yet or not, is the unknown too of having to go back into bargaining, which, is the if this weren't that, it might be, I don't know, at least in my head, it would be easier to consider going lower. Then I also look at that chart and I see how low, we're gonna be in the very low threshold of our reserves, of our fund balance, and that scares me too, because, but I understand, it's a big increase, and I think also the fact that we haven't done it in at least 12 years speaks to how hard this board has worked to not do that, and we're in a different reality.
It's very different.
Yeah.
And I do want to say, we can hold off on some of those capital projects if the 30 to 50% threshold is getting, if we're getting tight there. I think the hard thing is, the longer you hold off on some of those projects, sometimes the more it costs later, because eventually they have to be done.
Right.
And so we don't want to get to the point where we're in a dire situation and haven't planned for that, and then it costs more. Jay's been really good about making, smart forecasting decisions on the facilities, and that's why our facilities are in such good shape.
Well, we also don't want to get to a point where our fund balance is low or at the bottom of what we've agreed to keep, and then something, like, remember the year all the air conditioning broke and leaked on everything, then have something like that happen either, without having enough reserve, so.
I do also just want to be clear, just because CPI is 7 and we would levy 4.5 or 5, that doesn't automatically mean we have a $330,000 gap. Our costs don't go up necessarily in lockstep with CPI. Our current teacher contract is locked in, so their raises are set, and that's the majority of our budget. But the costs that they're seeing in in their lives are going up, and then when we do come and the contract is opened up again, that's where some of the costs start to hit. And I'm not necessarily seeing 8% on everything. Some things are more, some are less. Transportation is really hard to fill, and that's going up higher than 8%. Software is, 5%. So it's not like CPI is 8, so your costs go up 8. It'll probably be a lag, but because people are experiencing the inflation, it's trickling through the economy, and there's a lag, and we will eventually see those
And
costs.
they're not gonna come down. Once they're gonna go up to that new, whatever that new level is, and stay.
So we could levy 5 and still have a surplus next year or be looking good, but those costs will eventually catch up with us.
Minor point, maybe, on the actual resolution, on a couple on page 2, like where it says section 2, it refers to 105.6% taxes. Is that correct? It's more than 5%?
It is, the levy would be more than 5% because of the new property and the rounding.
Oh, so that includes new property?
That includes everything.
Okay, gotcha.
And then then there's also a line that includes
Corporate taxes, I think is.
debt service, which is
That's it,
wrapped in, and that brings it down to 105.1, but
Okay.
yeah, that's all in. Also, you could levy 5% now and wait until April and decide, and you could abate your debt service extension, and if you decided you wanted to give tax relief, pay some of your debt service out of operations, if that, next year. And then that wouldn't impact your ability to levy in the future. And you would still achieve giving the $85,000 to $100,000 back to taxpayers. That's another vehicle by which to do that.
Is that when we talked about like sending checks back to people?
That would just be telling the county not to extend the full amount.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can you make a note to bring that back to us, that question, in time to make that decision? To specifically to have a conversation about that?
It would be probably March. We would want to have the conversation February, March, because we need to let the county know by the end of March.
I was just doing that math in my head. All right.
Okay, anything else for right now? Great, thank you, Jay and Lisa, for that one. Moving on to item F, strategic plan discussion. Lisa, I'll let you take it from here.
Yep, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. So coming to you tonight with a strategic plan recommendation in terms of how to proceed with updating our current strategic plan. So always start with our mission and vision. And this comes from our most current strategic plan. So we read it at every board meeting, and it really does guide the work that we do, and we think about it a lot. So as the kind of foundational part of a strategic plan, this is really important to us. Our current plan was developed in 2017 by a varied stakeholder group. The board members at that time, the only one left is Mark. That plan was facilitated in-house, I believe, by two of our administrators. In 2017, obviously, we were pre-pandemic. Some of the new things that were in the plan were a new STEAM lab at LVES. We had a new middle school math program, and then our strategic plan before that was done in 2009, and it was facilitated by an outside group. But that's 8 years is a long time to go with a strategic plan, and obviously now we're on year 5, which 3 to 5 years is about how much time you usually get out of a
The
plan.
2009 one was facilitated by the same company that does our in-house data analysis.
ECRA.
ECRA.
Some of the big goal areas in the current plan, I don't think these are going to look really out of line. These are things that we still want, and some of these things might continue in a future strategic plan, but this is what's been guiding our district for some time. So what's being presented tonight is a recommendation for a new process that would begin after the first of the year, start January to February, depending on that second bullet, which is a community-wide launch and recap, as we've been talking about. We've been articulating as a village with the Village of Lake Bluff, Park District, the library, and us, because we're all planning together at the same time, and we think still it would be nice to try to organize a community-wide launch of our strategic plans and a resharing together at the end of the process to talk through what are our priorities as a community, so that when we plan, we can keep those in mind. At this point, we don't have a facilitator for that community process. So what I'm presenting tonight is a proposal for our specific school district strategic plan. Part of what we would be looking for with this outside facilitator is a reassessment of our previous goals and where we stand in relationship to them at this point, an assessment of our current reality and some potential future challenges. We would want it to be an inclusive stakeholder process. We, of course, because we just went through the Portrait of a Learner process, would want that piece incorporated as what we build it as, going through the process as our North Star. We would want some measurable goals and then support for action planning. I think something that we've struggled with a little bit is we did a great job with the goals outlined in the previous strategic plan. We've kind of met a lot of those goals. And so what we want is to make sure that what we have moving forward is an actual actionable set of goals that we can measure our progress against. So I looked at 3 potential partners. I did not look at ECRA as one of the partners. ECRA has moved away from strategic planning as a process. Actually, HYA has been acquired by ECRA, and so they're a branch. And so HYA does strategic planning for ECRA at this point. The 3 partners that I looked at were Battelle for Kids, which facilitated our Portrait of a Learner project with Lake Forest District 67 and 115. Hazard Young Atia, which is again an arm of ECRA, but is working right now on the True North strategic plan, so one of our partners there as well. And then CEC is a group that I've worked with in the past, Catalyst for Educational Change. So Battelle, their process is outlined here. It is a 5-part process. Two of those parts we have completed already, which is the Portrait of a Learner, and that's preparation in terms of looking at our community and envisioning with us that North Star. And then the 4 parts that we would be looking at would be an inquiry, and including that, what is our current reality, looking at gaps, and between our current reality and our visioning, looking at our assets, and then designing the strategic plan, looking at our capacity as an administrative team. And then the 2 are sort of looking at actualizing and operationalizing the strategic plan, and then checking in on us after that. The cost for that project would be $46,000. We already did pay $13,000 for the Portrait of a Learner. I did clarify with Battelle that if we had done all of these parts, it would have been closer to about $70,000 to $75,000 to have those 2 products. Ideally, the portrait lasts a little bit longer than the strategic plan. Strategic plans are a little bit shorter in duration, and so that portrait hopefully will last us a while. And as you know, one of my goals when I got here was to have us more aligned with Lake Forest District 67 and 115. And so doing that portrait together was really important for us. And then those 2 districts are also continuing with Battelle for Kids for their particular strategic plans. One is doing a full-blown strategic plan. I believe that's the high school district. And the other is updating and refreshing their strategic plan, District 67. HYA had a similar process. Oh, and I did want to just say one thing about Battelle for Kids. There would be a new design team that would be formed of stakeholders that would be inquiring together and looking at the current state together. So there would be stakeholder investment in that first part of inquiry. But we would be looking at a new strategic design team, different than the one that we used for the Portrait of a Learner. Okay, with Hazard Young Atia, similar process. So looking at a data review of the current data that we have, and then doing some interviews and focus groups, potentially a large survey. And then obviously looking again at those big priority areas and typical strategic plans with the mission, vision, values. They are used to working with Portrait of a Learners. They don't do that work, but they're used to having that in the district. And then identifying some priorities and objectives. And then they do have that follow-up support built in terms of action plans and indicators and a dashboard. And then some support for alignment with school improvement plans. Cost is a little bit more, but obviously pretty similar to Battelle for Kids. And then CEC, similar, just different wording. So the readiness sessions would be more interviews, a data review, looking at our assets in the district. The development sessions for CEC, there's typically 3 retreats. And so the planning process for CEC is broken into 3 retreats. Those are the first 3 bullet points. So the first retreat with the team is that data review. The second one is developing and looking at the actual setting of the direction. And then the third one is looking at key performance indicators and action planning. So that design team gets together for 3 retreats, and that's what happens there. That is what's incorporated in the cost of $23,000. The additional support in terms of a scorecard and dashboard design and then implementation and support is optional at the cost of $360 an hour for more coaching support. And they estimate 20 to 24 hours of that type of support. So the full cost would be around $10,000 less, 10 to 12 or 13,000 less than the other two. For all three of these, we would have an opportunity to interview and talk with the facilitator that we would have working with our teams and get the feel for who would be the right person to help facilitate. And again, as I just talked about, you could definitely facilitate something like this in-house with your current administrators, or you could do it with an outside facilitator. Because we're in such a baseline year and we're looking at some really big initiatives and really trying to get a wide and diverse community opinion about our future direction, I would like to have somebody else facilitate it so that I can be part of the process and be involved in the planning and discussion as opposed to facilitating. And I'd like our administrative team to be able to do that as well. So our recommendation, since we haven't used an outside facilitator since 2009 again, is to recommend that we use an outside facilitator, and we are recommending Battelle for Kids for this particular strategic plan. The reason that I feel strongly that Battelle for Kids would be a good option for us at this point is a couple of things. One is that I felt that they did a nice job with the Portrait of a Learner project. I think that they have already spent a year embedded in two of our communities and 3 of our school districts that we are trying to align. And I appreciate that they did guide us through the Portrait of a Learner project. I think it sends a cohesive message to the community that we're continuing with the same organization and continuing down that path. And since it was their Portrait of a Learner, my assumption, which may or may not be correct, is that they're more comfortable working with that product in terms of facilitating and detailing out a strategic plan that works along with that. I don't necessarily think that we have to do a full-blown strategic plan in the future. Sometimes things can be tweaked, but I do feel like we're in a reset moment. We've had a lot of things change since 2017, and I think it's important that we bring in the new components, bring in somebody to help us look at our past, our current reality, and the future that can help us design something that we can measure. So again, I don't have an answer for the community portrait planning process. I have a meeting with the village a little bit later this week to talk again, because we're both looking at consultants for that. But our goal is still to begin our process regardless in January or February.
Any questions?
Why would it be a different team with Battelle? Any particular reason?
It just would be different because we would have to go out and ask for volunteers again, and I'm assuming that not everyone that volunteered for the Portrait of a Learner process from Lake
I
Bluff.
thought you meant like the Battelle team would be
The
different.
Battelle team would still be different because our facilitator is no longer with Battelle. So Stephen Fuji is the one that did the facilitation. He left Battelle, I think, 4 or 5 months ago. So I've already talked to them about potential partners that we could work with, and I've already asked that we have an opportunity to talk, Andy and myself and maybe one other board member, just to think through who would be the best fit for the process for us.
I like the continuity. And I agree, starting over with somebody else seems unnecessary, and they're familiar. What was obviously, the feedback was positive, if you're looking at them again. Was it pretty much unanimous that people thought they did a good job?
Yeah, I mean, we did have some feedback, and the Portrait of a Learner process was received really positively. And I have to be honest, I don't know that all of that had to do with the facilitation. I think a lot of it had to do with just community coming together and having an opportunity to talk, and especially hear from our students. So I'm not sure if that is due entirely, and I don't think so, due entirely to the facilitation, but I do think that the process was facilitated well and smoothly, and that's what led to the good conversations and to the ability for us to hear our students' voices and get those into the portrait.
So when the strategic plan, the last one was done in 2017, was it Jean Sophie who was facilitating that then?
I believe it was Jean and Kevin Rubenstein that did it together.
Okay,
And again, a refresh too is a little bit different than a full-blown plan. And I don't know where we'll be in 3 to 5 years with this. It's certainly something that I can facilitate, but I feel really strongly that for the first one for me here, I, again, would love for our administrative team to just participate.
There's also significant opportunity cost to you doing that because there's means other things that you're not moving forward on, right? So,
Right.
I agree. I agree with that in particular, that hiring a facilitator is gonna make your life a lot easier. Because it's a huge job.
It's a big job.
Well, and that will take your attention away from other things then. Yeah.
I,
There's only so much of you to go around, you know?
I definitely support having a facilitator. I definitely support eliminating the HYA as an option. I've worked with them in the past. It's the model that's been around since the beginning of time. I think that it might produce the same old thing. It's good to look at something new. Amy's point about continuity from Patel is a really good one. The one question I had was with Patel, I wasn't clear from their proposal about their involvement of local community Lake Bluffers. I know Lake Bluffers were very involved in the Portrait of a Graduate, which is amazing, but I want to make sure that the culture of Lake Bluff is clearly embedded in the strategic plan. And if they just roll over the learnings from the Portrait of a Graduate into our strategic planning without doing whatever they do locally, interviews and focus groups and things, that would be a mistake. So if I didn't read about it, but my recommendation is that we definitely involve people from the community to make sure that we're a unique place, right? We want to have that reflected in that plan.
I think that's a great point. And the other thing that I would add, just thinking about it, Portrait of a Learner isn't necessarily something that most K-8 districts have. And the fact that we were invited to participate in that, especially given the shared leadership model in 67 and 115, is really unique and puts us in a different position, right? So I think your point is well taken that, yes, we were a part of that process, but we're also in a very different position.
We want to ensure that we're different.
And we need to make sure that all of that's reflected, so, yes.
We're not voting on this tonight, are we?
No, tonight's just discussion. We'll put it on for the December meeting.
I've been in, just for people, so people know, I've been involved in a bunch of strategic plans, whether it was here or at True North. And over the years, one of the things they did, I'm not suggesting we do this, but is they've brought in the team that you're gonna work with. And they presented to the board. Because I think the reality of this is, you might have a wonderful model at company A, but crummy people, and wonderful people at company B, but a mediocre model, and it's all about the people.
Yeah, I agree.
So there's.
And I can certainly bring in and work to have that facilitator identified before December and have somebody come in
Might be smart.
to present. All the companies were willing to do that.
Tim, did you have something?
Yeah, I just, the difference in cost is giving me a bit of pause. I thought that Battelle did a great job with the Portrait of a Graduate, but $12,000 to $20,000 after, particularly after our last discussion about the tax levy. Are we getting that much of a difference? And looking at the proposals, and I know this is an optional feature, but the scorecard and dashboard design that CEC had seemed like it was, and I don't know if Battelle does something similar, but having those indicators kind of on a website that people can see, I think is helpful, helpful too. Not saying that's a reason to go with them, but just the costs give me, the big cost difference is giving me pause on jumping on board with Battelle.
I would agree. I think it's a pretty large price tag, no matter what. I do want to say that through our ECRA portal, we actually already have a dashboard that we could be monitoring other indicators. So that is something we pay for through ECRA already, and we can design that however we want.
Okay.
So if that is something that we want to start utilizing, we can do that in-house. In terms of the follow-up support, the one thing that made me a little nervous about CEC was the fact that the additional coaching and follow-up was optional. And in my experience with coaching support, sometimes that falls through the cracks because it would be on us to ask when we want the coaching support. And if we want the coaching support, and to be honest, a lot of things go on. Once the school year gets going and then you have this plan and it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna schedule our coaching, and then the coaching gets pushed because it's an hour at a time and it's hard to find that time. So something that was attractive to me was building in that follow-up and support into the process so that it's not on the district to continue to schedule additional support when they need it. The flexibility is nice, and again, I did not work with that part of the CEC process, so the only thing that I was equating it to is my current experience with consultants, and I'm just not sure that that's something, we could use more than that, which then increases the cost if we
Yeah.
really need it, or it's something we wouldn't maybe necessarily fully take advantage of, which wouldn't be helpful either. So that was part of my thinking around that.
That makes sense.
I need to interrupt for a minute. I'm sorry. I have a kid stranded in a carpool
Go.
issue, so I need
Yep.
to go.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go.
I will try to come back.
Yep.
If it's at the end, but
Who's the vice
All good,
president?
all good.
yeah,
Hands
okay.
up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When it comes to the money on that, Tim?
No, you're good, go ahead.
The last time we spent money on, I clearly remember a number of people in the community coming up to me and saying, can't your superintendent do that? Why are you
Yeah.
spending? So just be prepared.
No, I
People are gonna-
appreciate that.
People will make us think about, some people might be upset by spending money on facilitating strategic planning. I don't agree with that, and it's our decision, but just heads up.
My question about the money was, this is the same cost that it was for Portrait of a Learner?
So the total cost for Portrait of Learner is the same. We split that in three.
Right,
Yeah.
and so I guess I was just kind of curious, because to me, it seems like that was a large undertaking. And so why would it, like, they gave the cost, but they didn't necessarily break it down. I would
Nope.
love to see like more of a breakdown.
I can ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good to know.
I would tell you that the Portrait of a Learner process that we engaged with was much more complicated than they usually engage with, incorporating 3 districts and 150 people. So
Right.
I see it more as they gave us a deal on that, as opposed to, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because they.
To me, it looks like
Yeah.
we're not as large as that. There was 3 districts
Right.
included, and this is just one, and I don't know how much of I know, Lake Forest did a great job of setting us up and stuff, so I don't know if that was anything to do with Patel.
No.
Or if we're gonna also have to do those kinds of meeting setups.
Yeah,
and-
we would have to do that. And again, that was part of, and again, I think that came from the partnership that Dr. Montgomery had already built with Battelle for Kids in previous strategic plans, that it wasn't an additional cost to incorporate 2 additional districts. So they did the process, they collaborated with both of the administrative teams together, designed the process as one, and then we split the cost. So I think they charge for a process, and that's what the process is, but I will ask for more of a breakdown
Thank you.
and have them present that in December. Any other questions or anything else that I can help with?
I'm excited for it.
I think it'll be good.
All right, thank you.
She just jumped right.
Is that it? Do you have anything else?
I don't have anything else for that.
So now we're on to the IASB resolutions for III.
Yep, so we have, Amy is our delegate, and we have, thank you for
One for the team?
Thank you.
that.
Yes,
And thank the rest of you for weighing in on the resolutions that you don't necessarily agree with the recommendation of IASB. So we came out with 4 that we wanted to talk about. And the first one is fund balance, Miller ratio adjustment. That is the first resolution. And the IASB committee recommends to adopt that one, so.
I would sure love to hear like statistics on how many districts out of the 800-something districts in the state have more than a year's worth of fund balance stored, put away. Because that's what the Miller thing's all about, right? I mean, not that many.
Do they puzzle?
It's by fund also, so
Oh, so they might
it's
have,
not in total, like you could, in the transportation fund, you could have more than that. It's not looking at your total fund balance and your total operations, it's by
Certain
fund.
funds could have a higher
It could be
ratio.
just
So
than
we
others.
did, in fact, but when I started, we were getting tax objections in the transportation fund because we had accumulated money in that fund, and by adjusting the levy, you can bring it down, but the rule is that you can't have more than 2 times the average of the last 3 years' expenditures.
Right.
So it's actually 200 times fund balance. But because it's by fund, there's some smaller funds where that's not really that difficult to do. And what in practice, what happens is attorneys look for school districts. They have a program that goes out and looks for that and calculates it, and then they go to large taxpayers and get them to
Pay for an objection?
for them to object, and then it goes through and,
Yeah.
they get.
But they can do it by fund. So if they so even some small fund could be objected to by an individual and cost the district money to do that.
Yes.
Well, and what this resolution, if I understand it right, because this one was tough for me, what I'm understanding is that right now the law says that they can keep 2 times, like 2 years worth of funding in a fund, right? And this would up it to 3 years worth?
I haven't read the resolution, actually.
Is that what everyone else understands?
It was a little
That's
confusing.
probably right.
Right? Because right now it says the ratio is at 2 and it would go up to 3.
And the point, and they made the comparison to other government bodies that currently are allowed to go to 2.5 times.
Right, like villages and
Yeah.
whatnot.
And
right.
it includes the fund balance plus your recent levy or something. So it's not just the money that you have, but it's the money you have access to. So it's the levies included in that number.
So
I see.
I'm gonna actually change, I don't know if mine was a tipping point, but I said I was gonna disagree with the IASB recommendation to adopt it. But I didn't realize what Jay just told us, that this is by fund. And that seems insane, that people can object at that level of granularity. And so I'm not gonna object to what the resolution committee recommends in this case.
Okay. Did anyone else disagree with what the resolution committee was recommending in this case?
So we did it just based on mine.
No, I might have disagreed.
We all said, what do
It's
we
good to
want to
talk
talk about?
I included this if anyone was in disagreement.
Oh, okay.
So there's no threshold. It was just,
I thought it was the majority.
nope.
Sorry.
So it could have been more than you. Some people
It
couldn't
might
be
have
speaking
been.
up right now,
Yeah,
but.
I can't even remember. what
Okay,
it
so at this point, my understanding is we all are in agreement with the resolution committee
To support it.
recommending to adopt this one.
And we don't need to be all, just the majority of us are.
Well, true, yes, but
I thought you changed your mind.
I did.
It's unanimous now. The second one is the alternative fueled school bus funding. And at this point, the Resolutions Committee recommends to not adopt.
so this is one I wanted to talk about. I don't know if anyone else did, but
Can we clarify really fast? We support, or we're discussing, they don't want to adopt it.
They are recommending to not support it.
And
We're discussing whether or not you want to support it.
support them not supporting it. Okay.
Yes.
Do you agree with
Sorry,
them,
I
or
just
you
had
want to
make
support?
sure-
Yeah.
I know.
This
Okay.
is the
Agree with
exact,
them or
this is the
disagree with them?
exact conversation we
I
have
know,
every
we
day.
have to, but
Yeah.
that's my brain.
Well, you
No,
only
it's okay.
brought up the ones where we have people who disagree with their
Their
recommendation.
recommendation.
Yeah, it's
Right.
9 o'clock, I get tired.
no, this is super confusing
Yeah.
every year, right?
Okay, sorry to
And
interrupt you.
yes, all we're doing is saying whether or not we agree with
Or not.
or not.
Okay.
This one to me, I had just said, the committee says they do not want to adopt this, and the concern is lack of funding. I can't even read my notes now, and inability for this infrastructure for these green buses, right? Is that what I'm remembering here? I disagree with them not wanting to do it. I get it's inconvenient, I get it's expensive, but at some point, I feel like it has to be a priority. So that's why I disagree with what the resolution committee is recommending.
I supported it because of their arguments of, of rural school districts, of, basically the issue with like electric cars these days, they pushed it a lot and then you can't even charge them in certain places. So I think it would just be a huge, financial hit on our district, especially with our transportation costs as it is. So I was with them on not pushing it.
Okay.
The rural piece for me too was what did it.
I'm an environmentalist. I own solar panels. But I support the Resolutions Committee decision to not adopt, because I think we have greater priorities that need more funding in this state than that. I would love to see every school bus in the state run on alternative fuel, but I don't think the state can possibly afford that. And they have higher priorities for kids in other places. So.
Okay. Lauren or
I,
Tim, what do you
I
think?
agreed with their, not to adopt.
Okay.
I agreed with their recommendation not to adopt.
I disagreed with their recommendation.
What?
There was something similar last year, and I think the district rationale in this one touches on that, where last year, they're like, oh, rural districts can't use electric buses. This year, they talked about using lower emission buses.
Yeah, like propane and stuff. Yeah.
There seems to be, at least according to my spam folder, for students sending me all sorts of stuff about government funding for electric buses. So there seems to be something out there, whether or not that's accurate or not. But if there's funding to electrify bus fleets, I think our state should try to get that funding, or school districts should try to get that funding if it's available. So that's why was my reasoning, and I agree with what Ann said, that it's going to cost a lot of money, but we're going to have to do it at some point.
So that leaves
Agree on that.
4 in agreement and 2 in against. So without Andy, we still have a majority. So, okay. I'm with you, Tim.
It's just a bad timing, I mean.
No, I understand the arguments, for sure. Okay, so that one, then we also will vote that we, in agreement with the committee, that we recommend do not adopt.
Okay, the next one is firearm dealer location, which is number 3, and the Resolutions Committee recommends do not adopt.
I was on the, I was on the fence about this originally. I was fine with the recommendation, and then I looked at it again and figured there's, to expand the radius, their concern about current firearm dealers within that, I feel, could be taken care of with a law. I don't know. It doesn't really matter, but I would disagree with the recommendation on this.
I agree with Tim. I disagree that they should not adopt it. I think that their reasoning to not adopt it is laziness. They said it would be too hard to contact all the people that, I mean, it's not that. I would do it.
I agree with you guys on that one. To
disagree with
disagree with their,
So you're recommending
They
to
don't know
adopt
that we
it?
know
Yes.
that they know.
yes, so we're going again, I mean,
I
So-
support the recommendation.
You're in
So you're-
agreement with the committee.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm in agreement with the Resolutions Committee
It's out
to
there.
not
to
support.
not adopt.
Okay, why?
My primary reason is that I don't think it's gonna make a difference. I don't think the ISB should be focusing on issues that won't make a difference. I think the guns that are in schools, the kids are not going to gun stores to buy guns. And I think that moving them 1,500 feet from 500 feet is not gonna make any difference in any of the horrible things that happen in schools and to kids across the country.
I think
I
that
agree
was-
with you. My thought on this was I could go either way, whichever way the majority wanted to go, because obviously I don't, I think anything to be done to get guns away from schools is positive, but I don't really feel like this is going to make a difference. So I could go either way.
Where are we on the number?
So it sounds like,
Who supports their decision?
who's
I
supporting the
support
committee?
their
Who
recommendation.
supports the committee?
I support the committee.
And
I know-
you don't, and Tim, you don't?
Correct.
Right.
So we're voting against the
Oh,
committee.
that's easy. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, it doesn't matter.
Yes, it
Right?
does. It always matters.
You can still matter.
You can
We
sway
still like to hear.
I mean, let's save 2
Somebody's
minutes, want
opinion.
to? I'm not passionate, either way.
Right, so
So-
we are going a different direction than.
Then the
I guess,
committee.
yeah, I'm not passionate either way either, but we have people on the board who are, and so I will support you guys and we will go against the,
And do we know where,
Committee
or we don't need
recommendation.
Andy's? Because we have consensus.
because we'll have 4, so.
He's
yeah.
not here, so we got a quorum.
And here.
so.
Got it.
And the final one is capital grant fund for school buildings. I'm sorry, I lied.
Number 6.
We are in agreement with number 4, we're in agreement with number 5, number 6.
It's
We're
involvement
talking
with
about
candidates for
involvement
public
with
office.
candidates for public office, which says the committee recommends to not adopt.
I don't like the way they print this. It's the worst. It's columns and not
I know, it's hard to read. Okay, I.
Well, they're
have to read it.
replacing the other one.
recommendation, because
They're,
maybe tell.
they're replacing the other one, which I could see one for almost one based on supporting candidates and one supporting legislative positions, creating a new one as opposed to eliminating one or writing over the other one.
Wait, what?
If you read the original 3.02, the statement, it's all about supporting candidates who are taking positions that are good for kids in schools. What this district proposed was rewriting it to be supporting of legislation and not
The candidate.
touching on candidates.
What would you say the difference of legislative positions and candidates are? Like somebody already
Oh, I think,
voted in versus somebody like campaigning? That's how I took it, like a campaign versus somebody that was already in office.
I think it could be either way. You could support a candidate who supports positions that are aligned, like, what's her name, our rep, I'm blanking on it.
In here.
No, not Sandy Hart, she's,
Julie Morrison.
Julie Morrison takes a position that, she's not up for reelection, but she takes a position that will really benefit area schools. I'm going to support her in her reelection or in her efforts to, whatever. Sometimes they come to the districts and ask questions to find out why we are in support of something, and so that gives them the ammunition they need, as opposed to just advocating for a specific position. I think that's the distinction they're trying to make. And they're saying that supporting a candidate gets into the partisanship stuff, and I disagree with that. It doesn't have to be partisan to support a candidate. It could be.
I mean, I see what you mean, but I feel like it's such a, like, that's a very open-mindedness that not a lot of people have. Sorry.
I take a nonpartisan approach to school boarding.
Agreed. But I feel like if you, the way that they were speaking, if it could look like you're taking a partisan approach. Does that make sense?
I hear you.
That's how I took it.
I don't see, if you read the original one, I don't see the partisanship in it. But Indian Prairie School District 204 thinks that it was.
My mom worked for them.
So I had originally said, I reviewed as our 4th one, the wrong one, so I was just looking at this again. I had originally said I agree with the resolution committee's recommendation to do not adopt.
I do too. I'm still there.
I disagreed, but I'm a bit on the fence after Mark, I think, said it better than how it was written. And I just don't think as school boards we should be, I took it more as endorsing candidates, and I don't think it's, IASB should be endorsing candidates. I don't think school board, we as members of the school board in that position should be endorsing candidates, but that's just my opinion. That's how I read it, but I
agree with everything you just said.
I think it's an argument that both of them need to be
Yeah.
readdressed.
Yeah.
more
And I didn't
carefully.
even notice the candidate was crossed off until you pointed that out in the title.
So do you agree with the committee recommendation or don't agree?
I'll disagree with it.
Disagree with it, okay.
You're a disagree too, right, Amy?
Yeah,
All right,
I'm with Tim.
disagree.
I was in agree. I was supporting the committee.
I support the.
Well,
Oh, come on, I can't.
So we're 3 and 3.
It's
Is that where we
supporting
are?
the committee or
You're-
not supporting
you're
the committee? No, I'm
disagreeing.
supporting the committee's resolution. They
To not adopt.
Same with me. I'm disagreeing with the resolution, but supporting the committee.
Okay, so
Okay.
three
So-
to 2. What are you?
We're, the 4 of us are aligned.
Oh, okay.
So there we go.
Gosh.
I
we
was
need to
looking at it
speak
wrong.
in
I
the
think
same
5 of us.
language.
So you're saying
So my understanding,
I'm
Lisa, tell me if
saying
this is your understanding,
the
is that with
changes.
all,
not the candidate.
Right.
Well,
I-
with
the
number
question-
1 and number
the question is,
2,
do you
we
support
are
the
agreeing
committee's
with the
recommendation?
committee's recommendation.
So
With
I
the
do
firearm dealer one,
support
we're
it.
not agreeing with the committee's
Do you
recommendation.
support the proposed change?
And then with
or-
number 6, we
I
are
do
agreeing
not.
with the committee's
So that's,
recommendation.
then you're in alignment with the committee's
what you got?
recommendation.
Yes.
Because they don't either.
Yeah.
This is all about, do we support like this big vote?
No, clear as mud.
Do we support them getting behind?
I need a Diet
this?
Coke.
Amy, are you clear on what you're gonna be doing?
There's some struggling going on over here.
I'm having a little,
Yeah, what's going on?
not with the idea, I just can't wrap my head around. Okay, so they are not adopting it.
Their recommendation is not to adopt.
And the question for us is, are we in alignment or not with the committee's recommendation?
Yeah. Do
It's not really on the issue itself.
Right,
Right.
right. Do
It's
we
with the-
agree
Do we agree with the committee's recommendation?
not to adopt it?
Can I ask a question, Mark, because you've been in the delegate assembly? Do they present their recommendation and then you vote on that? Or did they just present it as, this is the issue, agree or disagree? Do you remember?
This question always comes up in the assembly, too. Somebody
People are
always asks, are we
confused.
voting on the
Yeah.
recommendation of
You're
the,
gonna have so much fun.
I don't remember. I'm not
Lisa's
sure if
getting nervous about who
I
we're
would
sending
assume
in.
that they are,
I've only been in it once and I don't
Yeah,
remember what the
I've been in
format
it
was.
probably 3 or 4 times. and
the beginning of this kind of
was so boring,
says,
I blanked
You
it out.
come out of it super frustrated every year, because you're like, people are arguing the issues and that's not the question.
And there's,
That's what I remember.
tells you what is gonna
and
happen.
there's nothing that you can change in the meeting.
That's
But
okay,
people
yeah.
line up.
Back to number 6.
Argue. Okay.
Okay.
Because you had something to say, right?
No, not on number 6.
Oh, okay. All right. You're right then.
So
I thought Tim was
I
saying.
heard that we have 4 people in agreement with the committee's recommendation for number 6.
Correct.
I heard that as well.
Am I correct?
Yes.
At least 4.
Which means that you're actually disagreeing with the resolution.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So we-
So
But
for
agreeing with
fund,
the committee to not adopt.
Just to,
so to recap, we talked about fund balance and the Miller ratio adjustment. We recommend that we're gonna support the committee's recommendation for number 1.
Correct.
For number 2, the fueled buses, we are also recommending to support the committee's recommendation to not adopt. For number 3, the firearm dealer location, we are agreeing with the committee's, no,
No.
Not agreeing.
we are not agreeing.
I even filled this form out wrong.
yes, you sure did.
I mean, I know what it says.
So we are not in agreement with the committee's resolution for the firearms.
Correct.
And for the last one, we're supporting the committee's.
Good luck, Amy.
No, I have an answer for
Yes,
you.
we are.
I know it won't matter.
Matters.
I disagreed with number 7.
Oh, did I miss that one, Tim? I'm
It's
sorry.
fine. I'm the only one, so I'll just say I don't think there should be a sunset provision. I have no other issues with the other changes. I just don't think there should be all mandates should be subject to a sunset provision. So that's all.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter. So.
And number 7 were mentioned in it.
Yes, we are. Yeah. Because that's something the Tri-District Legislative Advocacy Group has talked about.
Okay, so in this packet, on page 11, it does explain what is going to happen. Or at least that's how I took it, is that you will, crap, now I lost it.
All right, well, we can read it on the way down to the Triple I
Just so you
conference
know,
and go over.
it is voting on the committee's decision,
Yeah,
not
or whether you're not trying
individual.
supportive, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think that's right.
and you can see like,
Oh, I've been researching my role.
um,
I am ready.
what made me laugh was the votes in 2020 when you said it was all digital and it got like wacky, like the numbers are all off.
And the technology didn't work, right?
Well, they're supposedly supplying a device to everybody when they walk in the room, so they're taking it out
system.
of your hands, so. 'Cause they had us download an app the last time, and not everybody had phones, so it's like, you do.
Amy, thank you for taking
Lot
this
of
on
people.
for us. We
My pleasure.
appreciate it very much.
It will be a learning
Okay.
I'll
experience.
remember it for the
And
rest of the year.
let's
Move on.
Let's move on. Madam Vice President.
now draft of the gun safety resolution.
Okay, so as you recall, I worked with Carrie and Tim to merge 3 gun safety resolutions, 2 that we have received from neighboring districts, and 1 that was a recommendation from an advocacy group. We brought it as a first read last time. We got some feedback. One of the bullet points was deleted. It was the one that had to do with the most recent shooting, which is now not the most recent shooting anymore, and we decided to take that out, as well as adjusting those last 3, be it resolved. So we reordered those 3, and then also tried to be a little bit more specific about what we meant by working with a broad spectrum of local community stakeholders.
I think it's good.
I do too. I like the revisions. I think it's great. I'm 2 thumbs up.
Thank you for taking the time for that.
Agree.
Anybody else?
When will we read it?
We read it at the last.
Would you
No,
like to
but-
read it now?
No.
No, do we need to, we're voting on it, right?
We're
Yeah,
voting
we
on
can
it.
read it at the vote.
Do we need to?
No, I was just saying, like, when are we going to, like,
Announce it to the community?
proclaim it? Yeah.
Well, this is it.
After we
When
get
we approve it, we're
Stand in
approving
the
the resolution.
with a megaphone.
with trumpets.
Scroll. I mean, is that not what you picture? Is it just me?
I mean, we could read it out loud this time, because we're voting on it and approving it tonight.
Okay, should we read it right now?
Well, we're gonna vote on it.
Read it
at the last
No,
one.
yeah, it's okay.
We did read it at the last one,
I mean,
I
it's
thought we did.
out loud? I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm pretty
not
sure.
like perfect, not,
Let's read it as part of the motion.
yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, I like that.
Happy to help out.
And that's it.
And that's it for discussion and presentation.
Okay. All right, so now we can move on to our action items. Yes?
Yes.
Do you have a motion page?
I got nothing. What do you have?
I don't have it. I'm not part of that team
If you
anymore.
click on it, it should say it.
Can you send the memo?
Usually all the motions are,
Amy's
written
gonna
out for
send
you.
you the memo with the motions.
Thank you, Amy.
so you didn't know he was gonna leave you hanging, huh?
I didn't know that. All right.
The auditor texted me and said he could still join us by Zoom if you're interested in the presentation.
I think the internet.
Oh, God. And the clock's off, so that.
I did notice that
Mine.
before. Yeah.
That's why I looked at it and I said 9 o'clock, and I was like,
It's already late.
I know, we're turning
For
into
us, by
pumpkins.
our standards, it's late.
Hold on,
After 10?
wrong email
No,
account,
10
I'm
o'clock, I was gonna
sorry.
say.
It's almost 10 after 9. though. They didn't change the time with daylight savings.
Half my clocks are wrong in my house. It's driving me crazy.
Press Policy Committee, that's all I have from you, Amy. I'll refresh.
yeah, I think you can follow through on board.
No,
It hasn't come through yet.
Told you the internet was down.
You can.
I mean, can I just,
You can
it's
just-
make it up, basically?
Yes, as provided by the administration, as included in your board manual.
Okay, all right.
Can I get a motion to approve the metric?
All right, so, moving on to our action items. Item 8A is approval of reserving matching funds for the maintenance grant. So can I have a motion to approve this?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please, for Carrie.
Lauren Hirsch?
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach, yes. Tim Penich?
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue?
Yes.
Ann Hill?
Yes.
And Mark Berry.
Yes.
All right, that passes. Second item, 8B, is approval of the tentative tax levy recommendation. Do we have a motion for that?
So moved. Or
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
You want a
Carrie
discussion first?
Steinbach?
Do we,
You call for a discussion, just in case. If there's
does
any
anybody
fur-
want to have any further discussion on this?
Oh, it does say
I'm just saying, typically you want to make sure that that's available.
I know, I'm with you, I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Guide on the
I'm
side.
ad-libbing here.
You're doing good.
You're gonna have to hold my hand through the personnel report again, Lisa.
So as presented by the administration. So that's the motion right now.
Yes.
Okay, so Carrie Steinbach, yes. Tim Penich?
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue?
Yes.
Ann Hill?
Yes.
Mark Berry?
A reluctant yes.
And Lauren Hirsch?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. 8C is approval of the gun safety resolution. So I will read the draft of that right now.
Unless somebody else wants to do it.
Unless somebody else
Carrie.
wants to. Carrie or Tim?
I can do it.
All right, go for it.
All right, this is the resolution to support student safety and prevent school and community violence. Whereas the district is charged with supporting student academic and personal achievement by providing an environment that feels and is safe for students and where parents and community members can feel confident in the same. Whereas thus far in 2022 and as of date of this resolution, there have been over 300 mass shootings in the United States. Whereas our community was recently devastated by the mass shootings in Highland Park, Illinois, in which 7 people were killed and dozens were injured. Whereas the United States has had 2,032 school shootings since 1970 and 948 school shootings have taken place since the Sandy Hook Elementary School tragedy in December 2012. Whereas gun violence is now the leading cause of death among American children, adolescents, and young adults between the ages of 1 to 24. Whereas an estimated 4.6 million American children live in households with at least one loaded, unlocked firearm. Whereas every year, roughly 350 children under the age of 18 unintentionally shoot themselves or someone else, resulting in nearly one unintentional shooting every day of the year, and 70% of these incidents take place inside a home. Whereas another 1,200 children and teens die by gun suicide each year, most often using guns belonging to a family member. Whereas in incidents of gun violence on school grounds, 75% of active shooters were current students or recent graduates. Whereas keeping students, teachers, and staff safe is the responsibility of all adult stakeholders in our community. Whereas the rising threat and realization of gun violence locally strikes at the heart of our shared goal of continuing to provide a physically and emotionally safe educational environment and future for the students in our community. Whereas school districts across the country, including Lake Bluff District 65 for the last 20 years, have allocated taxpayer dollars to fortify our schools, professional development hours to training for administrators, teachers, and staff on safety and security protocols, and instructional time to practice drills for crisis situations with students. Whereas in order to continue with preventative measures to increase student and school safety, in order to achieve our goals, we must act now. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the District 65 Board and Administration will take the lead to ensure that the district meets with a broad spectrum of local community stakeholders, including elected officials, law enforcement, mental health professionals, parents, students, teachers, and staff to monitor and respond to threats of violence, and to continue to develop, implement, and review policies, procedures, and programs that prioritize student safety and freedom from violence in our schools at least annually. Further resolved that the board and the superintendent will continue to collaborate and partner with community, state, and national partners to develop adult education opportunities for district parents and guardians focused on secure storage of firearms in their homes. Be it further resolved that the board directs the superintendent to create and send appropriately accessible communications at least once per year to parents and guardians that highlight the adult education opportunities and resources that explain the importance of secure gun storage and the legal obligation to protect minors from accessing unsecured guns for the safety of our students and community.
Nice. All right, does anyone have anything further to say about this draft resolution? If not, then can we have a motion on the draft?
So moved.
Second.
Can we just do an all in favor?
Yeah.
It might cost you money to implement.
Let's
though,
do a
right?
roll call
Just,
vote.
you be safe and do a roll call.
Tim Penich?
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue?
Yes.
Ann Hill?
Yes.
Mark Berry?
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch?
Yes.
And Carrie Steinbach, yes.
All right, that passes. Wonderful.
Do you want me to read the personnel report?
I would love that.
Okay, so the personnel report tonight, November 15th, we have non-licensed new hires. Meenakshi Chidambaram as a substitute, effective October 31st, at a salary of $125 per day. Kelly Schmigdal, substitute, October 31st, effective date, also $125 a day. Martha L. Chemis, substitute, effective November 9th, 2022, at $125 per day. And paraprofessional Nicholas Schlichting at LBES, effective November 10th at $19 an hour, as well as one FMLA request for Sarah Coleman, a learning behavior specialist at LBMS, effective date November 28th this year to January 2nd of 2023 for medical reasons.
Thank you. Any questions on that? All right, can I have a motion to approve the personnel report for November 15, 2022?
So moved.
Second. Amy Connell Donahue,
Yes.
Ann Hill,
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach, yes. Tim Penich.
Yes.
All right, the next item is 8E, the consent agenda, which includes open session meeting minutes, closed session meeting minutes, treasurer's report, impressed report, bills report, P-card report. Does anyone have anything to say about any of those or need anything pulled to discuss? All right, so can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Ann Hill,
Yes.
Mark Berry,
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach, yes. Tim Penich.
Yes.
And Amy Connell Donahue.
Yes.
All right, thank you. We had no FOIA requests this month. And now we have another opportunity for public comment. Thank you.
Tracy, you want to say anything?
All right, well then that is it. It is 9:16, and I'll have an motion to adjourn this meeting, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.